All right, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the New England Brewing Company, and they're out of Woodbridge, Connecticut, and this is their Sea Hag IPA. So this is an American IPA that comes in at 6.2% alcohol by volume, 65 IBUs at the time of review. This can is approximately 2 months old. I want to give a huge thanks and shout out once again to a very good friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Rick, for this beer. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to the beer mail unboxing video I did that contains all the goodies he hooked me up with. He hooked me up with a bunch of different New England Brewing Company beers, and we have another one here. And full disclosure, I've had this one before. I've had it twice. The first time I had it was back in 2014. I think I had it again the following year. And this is one of those old school meets kind of new school IPAs going back into the mid 2010s. So it was kind of different, a little bit more like juicy and fruity. And I really enjoyed it the first time I had it. I thought it was pretty damn good. And it's also kind of a historic beer. And that's because on the label here, they have a little bit of a story. So it says Sea Hag IPA is one of the first craft brewed American India Pale Ales to be packaged in cans. Handmade with 3 malts and a generous amount of hops throughout, the brewing process lends a crisp finish and a big floral aroma. Drink it, it's good. So the hops they're using this one are Columbus, Centennial, Amarillo, and Citra. And yeah, this was one of the first canned IPAs. I think when it comes to craft beer and canning, I think Oskar Blues is kind of like the first one known to do that. I mean, I don't think I've ever remember Oskar Blues being in like bottles for the most part. I think it's always been cans. But anyway, yeah, this has always been a pretty good beer. And by always, I mean I had it twice. I know talking to Rick, he said this is pretty much like a shelfy IPA around him. Price and availability, we'll just do it now to get out of the way. He basically said these are like $9.99 a 6-pack, sometimes a little bit cheaper. You could get them on sale and whatnot. And he said availability is pretty much everywhere in Connecticut. So we see some New England Brewing Company stuff here. And we used to get this beer quite a bit. They just came back to the area recently, and I have yet to see Sea Hag, but I've seen others. So anyway, this has a burnt, hazy orange color. It looks beautiful. On camera, it's probably going to look a little bit more dull and darker, but in person, beautiful. Lots of floaties in the glass, though. It's probably not. Let's see if I can turn around. My camera sucks, but at the bottom here, there's like little chunks. Probably the hops or the protein, whatever. Just under a finger of a off-white, super creamy looking head. This looks like a beautiful beer outside of those chunks, like a nose. Yeah. So this reminds me again, and I say this a lot when I drink a beer like this. I was like, oh, the first time I had it was in the mid-2010s. They have a certain aroma that was like, back then at least I was used to those West Coast IPAs and double IPAs and even East Coast IPAs that were more bitter, less juicy, less fruity. This has some of that, but then it has like a nice sweeter citrus tone, touch of a stone fruit, like a peach and an apricot. There's an underlying like bready kind of malt, slight caramel malt as well. And then, yeah, they say floral aroma. I would say, yeah, that mixed in with a little bit of like pine. It just smells, it reminds me of, drinking IPAs 8, 9, 10 years ago. Honestly. And that's not a bad thing, because a lot of them back then, for my palate, it was like something new. Because I wasn't really into IPAs until probably about 2013, 14-ish when I really got into them. And I remember having this and be like, oh, that's really, really good. So anyway, cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Rick. Yeah, I mean, it's really nice because it has a good balance between the old school and the new school. And when I'm saying new school, I'm talking about new school circa 2015, 2016, that range. So body and mouthfeel, body on this one's like medium. Maybe a touch under, 6.2% is fine. Mouthfeel, it doesn't have the crazy over-the-top mouthfeels you get from a lot of the New England and hazy IPAs nowadays, but it's a little bit softer, a little bit smoother, but it does have like a moderate carbonation. It's the taste that kind of brings me back. This has a lot of citrus, and it encompasses the whole citrus fruits. There's more like I'd say like a cutie orange. There's a ruby red grapefruit, dare I say a tangelo, a tangerine, in that realm. But it's not only do you get the juice and the sweeter components of the citrus fruit, but you also get the rind, the pith, the hop, the citrus oils. It's just really nice. As it passes on, I get a little bit of that bready caramel malt, dives underneath the palate. Halfway to 2/3 of the way through the palate is where they say floral. For me, it's more like a piney, grassy floral in that order. It's more pine to me than anything. It has like a resinous pine kind of tone. Semi-dry with a moderate bitterness. This is a very well-balanced beer. Like, if you are somebody who drinks hazies nowadays, and you try this, it's probably too bitter to your palate. But if you're someone who can deal with like a moderate bitterness, but you still like, and you like hazies nowadays, you could probably get down with this. It's not going to be over the top. There's a little bit of like a peach and an apricot in here as well. This leans mostly citrus with a touch of stone fruit, and then a big resinous pine floral kind of grassy finish. I can see why this is a great shelfie beer. I really can. This is not far off something here in the West New York area that's considered a shelfie beer, and that's Big Dish's Hay Burner. A little bit bigger ABV, I think it's 7.2, but that has a little bit more bitterness than a regular hazy IPA. And it has citrus tones, it has a little bit of stone fruit and tropical character, and it's a shelfie around here. It's very similar price. I think it's like 10 or 11 bucks a 6-pack. This is the same thing probably in Connecticut. It's kind of like the shelfie beer locally, and I'm all about these beers. I'm not going to rate this crazy high or go nuts over it, but I think most regions at this point when it comes to craft beer have that shelfie IPA that you can get at grocery stores, you can get anywhere. They go on sale sometimes. The regular price is cheap, 10 to 11 bucks a 6-pack. And if I was in Woodbridge, Connecticut, or in Connecticut in general, this would be like a staple in your fridge. Like a Hay Burner is a staple in a lot of people's fridge here in the Buffalo, New York area. It's just a really well-made, well-rounded, good American IPA, slightly hazy IPA, old school New England IPA, whatever you want to call it. So I dig this one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 originally. I'm not going to deviate from that rating. I think that's where a beer like this lands. This is very akin to the first time I had it. It's citrus, it's a little bit of stone fruit, it's pine, it's balanced, and it's pretty tasty. So Sea Hag IPA from New England. Yeah, we're going to go a 4 out of 5 all day, every day. Just one of those classic beers. And this isn't like, I'm sure a lot of people, if you like live in the Midwest or like out West, it'd be like Sea Hag from New England's a classic. I'm talking more like a classic, like New England beer or like Mid-Atlantic. Like if you live in the northeastern part of the U.S., you have probably heard about this beer, or you probably have had it yourself. It's kind of that class. This beer and G-Bot are like the two that I remember in the early days of my craft beer drinking, where I would be like, oh man, they had a little bit of hype around them. This beer more so G-Bot, but when you try them, you're like, okay, I can see why it has hype. And I already talked about price and availability, so there's not much more to say about this one other than, have you had this one before? If you have, post in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this one. I don't think anybody's going to drink this one. It's going to entirely just blow your socks off at this point. But I can't, if you like hop forward beers with a decent bitterness, a good balance, I don't see how you dislike this one. Like, the flavors are exactly what I expect out of something like this. So huge thanks to Rick for this one. I'm going to go and drink the rest of that one. 6.2%. You can't even, tell. They do a great job hiding the ABV. It's just, I don't know. These are the beers where, like, I'm starting to get back into them after going through hazies over the last, 4 or 5 years and getting on that kick. I like hazies, but I like hazies with some bitterness to them. I need that balance at this point. I don't like over-the-top, crazy, sweet, fruity hazies with nothing to balance it out. And I think this is a nice marriage of like old school and new school circa 2015. So anyway, thanks to Rick. Thanks to everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. Till the next one. Cheers.